Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on our Tuesday Talk. It's the evening edition of our Tuesday Talk, and I'm so excited because we have Dr. Robin Gould here with us today, and she has a message on about Yom Kippur or Hayom Kippurim. Is that right? Hayom Kippurim. Okay, and I am really excited because though I have been celebrating Yom Kippur for quite some time, I don't have a lot of understanding about a lot of things that go on with Yom Kippur, and so I'm really excited myself personally to have this. And I'm excited because there's some things stirring in our spirits right now, and I know that all of us are feeling it. The Holy One wants us to be so tender toward Him. He wants us to be soft toward Him because He is the groom, and I'm sure Robin's going to be talking about that, but we are getting ready to enter into this commitment, this wonderful commitment, and we should have butterflies in our inner selves. We should, and we should be looking forward to the unknown, and we should be excited about what's to come, and we should be very careful about how we're entering in. And so, Robin, I'm very excited to hear everything that you have to say. And I wanted to say hello to everyone first. And all of you that are listening by podcast, thank you for joining us. Will you do me a favor and just send us a message? Just let us know that you were able to jump on and that you enjoyed it, or that you had questions or whatever. And I'll forward all those questions to Dr. Robin because she has nothing else to do in her time. But
I
yeah.
point you to someone who will have it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just please let us know. Just let us know that you were able to jump on and participate in this. And I pray that tonight the Holy One will just speak so much life to you. And ladies that are joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so lovely to have you all here. Appreciate you. So Dr. Robin, let's get started. We have so much to talk about tonight and we have so little time. So I think we've got our timers on. So we're good. And Dr. Robin, everyone knows you. I'm not even going to, you all know her, and please go to Amazon, buy her books. They're amazing. I'm not even kidding you. Like this one, life-changing, life-changing, sets people free. Amazing. It's like a salvation message, Robin.
Well, thank you.
Yes, yes. So anyway, all right, Robin, let's talk about Yom Kippur.
Okay, well, yes, and we're just right around the corner from that, so it's perfect timing. And
Yes.
it's very exciting, especially when people are super new,
Mhm.
because I feel like when we can kind of launch this rocket with the right mindset, it
I love
never
that.
gets off. It locks and engages with heaven, and it just never gets off track. So
Mhm.
I really enjoy, if you've been in tour for many, many, many years, and that's good too.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things that I think about Yom Kippur that is often missed. So what I always try to do is I'm an attachment specialist. So I come at everything from an attachment lens. So sometimes that's a little bit different or a lot different. And so sometimes I try to fill in cracks I feel like other people aren't doing, because I don't want to regurgitate a great message or some other point other people are making. I'm just going to go in my lane. And my lane is fairly narrow in the fact that it's attachment based, which has a broad impact, I think. So what I think about Yom Kippur is it's the day of coverings, right? And so what the mindset here I would love people to have from an attachment perspective is to really realize something. You're mentioning the groom, right? So
Mhm.
the father is always in this stage of courtship, because at the next level in the world to come, of course, the word the betrothed and the children right now, right? But then we have
Right.
the bride. And the idea here is that the husband is demonstrating that he is chosen to take responsibility for you. So Yom Kippur, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be so hungry and suffering and afflicted and all of these things. And the idea would be that I have to suffer to be atoned for. And really, that is not what it's about, because the Father is not an aesthetic little g God that wants us to be harmed for his pleasure. But the affliction and the idea of being afflicted is being brought down low, not low dignity, not low love, not low understanding your value because you were created by the creator, so you have value, but it's to help, I believe, shed those layers. So he's going to cover us, not you. You don't cover yourself. So he shows us that during this special time where that high priest goes into the Holy of Holies, this is a picture of intimacy, that he's going to be intimate with us and show us that he, as our husband, takes responsibility for us. He's going to assume full responsibility in this intimate way. And so when we don't eat, we don't have the comfort of food, and we're not wearing leather shoes. There's different people that go with different traditions, or however you do it. But generally it's you're deprived of comfort and the things that comfort you. And so you start being able to slip into this place where you are realizing maybe how far removed we've come from understanding his intimacy with us, his covering of us, that he's our comfort. And we don't fail if we can't wait to eat. Like if you're in the 9th hour, even so early into it, and you're already like, oh, I just really want to eat and I'm whatever. And of course, as long as you don't have medical conditions, there's always, ways that I know people that have medical conditions and they can't fast. They have to take certain medications, or they can't not have water. They have like pots, or there's just different things that people have. And what they do is generally they'll, maybe deprive themselves of foods they really enjoy. They might just be eating, steamed cauliflower and whitefish. And that is not pretty on a plate, but it's like, okay, I stayed alive, So it just, people
Survived.
Yeah, exactly. Because I never want people to feel judged and
Right.
and miss the point. But with the idea of the Father taking responsibility for us. So with Yom Kippur, we're not comfortable, but deep, deep, deep down, we're comforted with this true like comfort. And so it's interesting because it's the day of affliction where we find our most comfort. So it's an interesting dichotomy for a lot of people. Our human experience desires food and leather shoes and soft, fuzzy blankets and colorful drinks and everything. These are things that we feel like, oh, look at the creation. It's so great. But we have to not worship creation. And I don't mean worship, but I mean, we have to not let creation be the alternative to the Father, but augment that relationship we have with him and enjoy it with him. So the idea from an attachment perspective of Yom Kippur would be that the Father always says that his goal is to restore all things. And so if he's seeking to restore all things in that catalog of all things, you are in that catalog, right? Like you're part of all, right? You're something in there. And so that would be you that he seeks to restore. So I always look at the feast sort of like, I don't know, I kind of think of like that. You ever see that movie, The Karate Kid? And he's got Mr. Miyagi, his mentor, and he's like, okay, I'm here to learn how to, do martial arts. And he has him like waxing on, waxing off the cars and painting, or the newer one, I think it's like jacket on, jacket off or whatever. And the kid just doesn't know, but he's showing him, he says, listen, the first thing you have to learn to do is just submit and trust that your mentor will not lead you astray, because then you'll never learn if you're like, I know better than you. So he says, first, you don't know what you're doing. You're just doing you, but you know what? Do your best at what I ask you to do. So he's painting the fence up and down, right? And then when he's at that point where he says, okay, I painted the fence, I've washed the cars, I put the jacket on and jacket off, and I do it, and I was wrong, I should have been humble. And then all of a sudden he says, he's doing this fight, and it's like paintbrush up. It's like, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, when it matters, right? You're doing the right thing just by doing what you've been practicing. So the feasts are an outline. It says a shadow. That word is outline of the future. So it's kind of interesting when people think it was something to do with only the people left of Matthew would do it, when it's actually an outline of something everybody right of Matthew is going to experience. But okay, that's just one of those, non sequitur things here. But so we don't always understand these kind of mysterious, elusive practices that are rituals and things in the temple, and burning things and slaughtering and blood, and all of these things are just so curious to us. But think of the people who watched Yeshua at Pesach, right? Oh wait, so this matches. Okay, paint on, jacket on, jacket off. Yes, I was right in the right place at the right time
Yeah.
to walk into the destiny of what we're taught. So the idea of Yom Kippur, I don't know if that touches you or helps you. Brenda, how do you feel about that?
I love that. I love that it's the practice part of it, that it is that it's us preparing. And you know what? I really love this part that you said is that when you first start, sometimes you're just all you're doing is you're not doing it like as well as you will do it, but you're doing it. And that's okay. It's okay that you're just doing it and you don't really understand it, or you're just doing it because this is what I'm supposed to do and this is what the word says, but oh man, I'm not really sure, and I'm not comfortable, and I don't understand tradition. Oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden it's because it's life to you, and it will become life to you.
Right.
It's not just about traditions of men. This is truly about learning who he is and who we are in him. And so, and the other thing that I really love that you were saying was, if you know, with all of the Torah, there's always a greater commandment. In other words, yes, you're supposed to fast, but if you're pregnant, is it called greater commandment? It's called something else.
Weightier matter,
The
or
weightier matter. Yes, thank you very much. The weightier matter is that you're caring for, if you're pregnant, you're caring for a fetus and you have to eat. I mean, that's not a good medical thing, or
right.
drink. So do it according to what you can do. And what Robin said was so good. If you need to take your medicine, take your medicine. That's the weightier matter, is that you are taking care of your health. That's the weightier matter. However, I wouldn't suggest that you take your medicine and then down 4 Snickers bars. You know what I mean? Like, take your medicine, do the minimal. If you need to eat something, and then fast, whatever that means. Maybe it means fasting for 3 hours until your next meal, or
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah, they
So
weigh that out and measure it
it's
out in
measured.
the
Yes.
best way they can. Because there are people that
Yes.
have like blood sugar issues. And so it's like we don't want to harm ourselves when
Right.
our Father. Affliction is to bring low, not to bring harm. And
Love
so it's
that.
to let that spirit man rise and that flesh man lower, but nothing more than that. Does it, you're right, because then we're the little g gods, like in Colossians,
Right.
where they were sitting on a bed of nails because the little g god, we don't want to template our Father after those Greek pagan, little g.
Right.
So it's
Right.
super important, exactly. And so so let's say, even this is a terrible thing to say, but like even like the little karate kid, if he had died or something before he had had his first fight, and he never even knew what the painting and the cars were for, he was still better as a person in terms of learning to trust Mr. Miyagi, like,
Mhm.
and seeing, okay, we are still making things beautiful as we just submit, as we just trust, and we just know in our hope one day it will make sense. And that's what Mr. Miyagi, I think, in that movie, I think that movie kind of walks on all fours, is such an example of
Mhm.
like, when you know you can trust me, you'll do everything I told you at the right place at the right time, and you'll be safe and you'll prevail and you'll be victorious. And so
So
if we
good.
can just walk through, even if we don't understand it, we don't have to have a reason to understand it. We already have a reason. We just don't have to need to. We just can say, it's
Right.
kind of neat. I don't understand it. That's kind of cool. Like, okay, I don't know, you know, and that's like what little kids are like, right? You take a little 2 or 3 year old and you take them, and they've never been to maybe a mall or something, and they're like, okay, I'm walking in the big hallway and I don't know, there's different doors and that person seems happy, and now we're leaving with a bag. Like, they don't know what these things are, but when they got home, they have an apple pie from the bakery. They're like, well, that worked. They don't, somehow this is in my belly. So it's like that, right? It's just come to me as a child. Just submit, be comforted, even when you're not comfortable, and let me take responsibility for you. Because here we are filing bankruptcy,
Mhm.
given the opportunity to acknowledge that we've racked up debt we can't pay. And the Father says, I take responsibility over your debt. I give to you, and you need to know this. So get out of the comforts, because what I think personally is, and people who have listened to my program know this about me, and I might sound like a broken record, but I believe everything is about identity. I think the garden story starts with Hava perverting her identity by trying to be like God and be the judge and essentially be God in her life, be her own God, have power, right? So I have a big argument with a lot of church systems that they're very focused on the power you have and that you manifest demonstrates where you are in this holy process, which is like, no, power is not, that's different. That's just a different thing. But the idea that our Father is intimate with us in terms of he created us. So he made Brenda, he made you, and he made you the way he wanted you to be. He didn't want you to compete with him. He didn't want you to try to be him. He is I am. So he's enough. You're enough just the way you are as a human. And so to me, we lose that identity, like Adam and Chava were hiding because they were forgetting that they were kids of the king. And they thought they had to hide. It's almost like they had to hide from the guard dog that's supposed to protect them. And he was there. It's like, no. Like, you don't understand. I'm your protector. You don't hide from me. You run to me. So on Yom Kippur, it's like we run to the Father with all our debts in our arms, spilling all over the place, crying and saying, okay, yes, I did want to be the judge, and I did want to dominate that person. I wanted to be you in that person's life and in my life, and I was the controller, and I was the manipulator, and I was doing all these things because I just didn't trust my needs would be met if I didn't take over. And that's all the stuff we run to the Father with, right? We run crying and wailing and begging him, take it. It's so heavy, and I don't want it. And of course, what does he do? He's like, bring every single last debt. And I've got it. I cover it, the coverings, right? The only time you see that word in the Bible is just for so you can't compare it to anything else. So it's that signifies this very special. This is a special, holy, set apart thing only for that. And so this covering idea is like, what I'll do is I'll cover all the fault selves you've erected. And because I don't know those, but I know Brenda, I know you. And what I'll do is, as we cover all the debt, we uncover Brenda, true Brenda. And who is Brenda? Brenda is the loving, funny, charming, all the good things, all the things the Father made you to be, long suffering, trusting, all of these things. When he looks down, it's like, hey, it's just her and me. So he covers up all the debt and all the falsity that we bring. And that's why we say the prayers, like, even if I don't know what the debt is, I take it, like, and to bring it to my mind if I don't remember it, because that's what bankruptcy is. You bring every last single debt in, don't leave one out, and it's covered. And so it's a powerful message of restoration, and it isn't a punishment, and it isn't you have to feel bad so you can feel good. It's you have to trust me, and just, you're going to get tired painting on, painting off, your jacket on, jacket. It's exhausting. And you just keep going.
Wow, I love that. I love the analogy of the bankruptcy because we get that. Like, we get that we're bankrupt and there's no way that we can pay what we would owe. There's, we understand that. Robin, thank you for putting it in terms like that, because when you go to the courthouse or wherever it is that you go with bankruptcy, you go there and you're basically saying, look, I can't do this. And they're saying, that's okay. That's what this is for. Let's take care of this.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to have to owe this any longer.
Exactly. And every piece of paper that's on the desk is covered, but not the ones you don't bring. So it's like,
I love that.
Would you walk into that room where you're doing the bankruptcy and it's going to be stamped by the judge, right? Like,
right.
Would you walk into that room and do what we always do, which is where we hide this debt here, and this debt under this plan, and this here because we're ashamed, and hide like Adam and Chava did? No, you know what we do? We take them out of the woodwork. We're like, hey, I think there's one in that hubcap. Get that one. It's like we're hunting. Where's all the false stuff? Well, I'm not eating. I'm not comfortable. This brings me back to how bad I felt when I tried to be that person's judge. Bring that in there too. It's like we can resonate with the pain of the world, everybody's pain, our pain. We start remembering and recalling in our body all of this pain. And so it's to bring us close to him, not to hurt ourselves. And so we are like taking every bit of debt, even though, where is there one I can't find, Lord? Oh, look at this, Lord, one stuck to the bottom of my shoe. I've been walking with this one for a year. Let's peel it right off. I don't care if I have to throw the shoe away because it's here. And you just put it all on there. And you're like, and if I forgot any, to my knowledge, I don't know, but this is a gift. So bring it all, right? And so get low, get to that place where you really, really admit truly to yourself and to the Father, like he is listening. The king is in the field informally, right? During Elul,
right,
to receive you and to not only receive you, but cover you. Don't hide. Don't feel punished. Because when the Father stormed the garden to take back what was his, that kind of brings us into the next piece of like, what is God's most prized possession? My answer is that you are. All these ladies here, you are his most prized possession. That you are the one thing he says he will redeem. He doesn't say he's going to redeem like that houseplant. That houseplant's already good in its function. But he will redeem. Now, all things would include all things in terms of bringing it back to its original state. But what's our original state? We're Chava in the garden before she tried to be her own God and forgot that she was safe with him. Because when we think we can make all the decisions when we're the kids, we are going to get a bellyache. We're going to eat poison. We're going to run to the road. We're going to do all these things, right? So his greatest possession would be you, but it wouldn't be the false you. All the ways that we're covering up our true identity. And he does not know that false person. He didn't make it. That's an image we create with our own hands. So the God we make in our own hands is a version of us that attempts to circumvent him, to be him, to solve our own problems. Now, where restitution can be made, we do it. But a lot of the stuff, it's under the blood. We can't re-engineer a lot of things. Like some of the different weird dynamics we've had with brethren. It's like, I don't even know how to go back and find that original thread to pull it. It's just so complicated.
Right.
Yeah. And so when we think about identity, do you have anything to say, Brenda? Or you?
I love that. And please keep going with the identity. That's my jam. I love that. I'm really in tune with you when I believe that it all comes back, everything, it all comes back to our identity. And when we submit to him and he starts revealing himself to us, all of a sudden we can see what is our false identity because it doesn't reflect him.
Right.
At all. It's dull, it's not shiny, not in the right way, right?
Exactly. Well said, actually. I like that. And that's true, because when it's like when we are, the idea is that he loves us and he can't take our submission. So he has imposed limits on himself and put vulnerability on himself to demonstrate what's in it for him, right? Well, Brenda submitted her heart to me today and knew I could cancel her debt. Well, then she knows who she is. And if you know who you are, right? The joy of the Lord is your strength. You're strong and he's joyful.
That's so good.
And that's just such a touching place for us to be with him. Is like, our identity is what pleases him the most because he made it. And when that's enough for us, we could be like that. Sometimes we have to get low to go there. Sometimes we have to be writhing on the floor, letting go of these false selves because it's an impulse we have. I mean, I fight against it all the time. Like, I just want to, trick pony my way into this conversation or whatever I want to do. And the Father's like, you know what? Yom Kippur is going to be a longer day than you know. And I'm like,
oh, I think the sun's going to have to stand still for me. I'm sorry. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
It's my fault.
But I think, like, a lot of times we allow, and I'm going to use these two extremes. We allow the world and we allow religion to intrude on this identity. So we're people pleasing in our religion so that people think we're powerful in the religious world. And this is a marker that I've made it in the spiritual realm. And it's like, no, we're not on teams here. Okay. We're not, we don't have t-shirts that it's just, but then that would be religion. But then the world, right, would be the other thing where just drink all the booze and the wine all the time. Just buy the stuff all the time. Like be the Instagram image all the time. It's like, I'm not, you know what I mean? It's like, this is where we start getting buried in ourselves. With a wall, we get buried in the walls of the house we make instead of being in his house. And he's like, hey, come out of that house that's falling down and rickety and built with duct tape. Come into my palace, sapphire floors, you and me. I'll take you through every room, and our identities are in every room. We are everything to him. And we're not building ourselves up. He made us. We can't build ourselves up. He made us. He built us, and he built a home for us to live in with him. And so you just come as you are, bride. This is the woman I love. This is what a man would say, right? And if she walks in and she's like, I think your parents would like me better if I had a Southern accent because they're Southern. And you're like, no, just be yourself. Like, because someday you're going to have to talk like you. Are you going to carry that on forever? And no, he's like, just come as I made you, be what you are. Don't be something else. Because that won't solve any problems. And so we allow the world and in religion to intrude on this identity. We don't even realize we're doing it. But when we are hungry and we're afflicted, and we're purposeful, and we know it's a bankruptcy, and we've got to find every piece of paper, he's saying, this is your opportunity. This isn't your burden. I'm taking on your burdens. You thought this was a burden, and you carried it as long as you could, and you ruminated like an ox with these people who are hurting you. And I'm asking you to let go. Being their little underpinned minion is not good for you any more than it is to dominate them, right? Like, that's not good. So the idea, so this year, like, one of the things that I've been talking quite a bit about is sovereignty. So it's kind of the word there that I was my word of the year or whatever. I don't know if people do that every Rosh Hashanah, but mine this year is sovereignty. So the idea of sovereignty is the true us that the Father made. And we have the responsibility to be that and to guard and protect it. Just like in the garden, Adam and Hava were to guard and protect the garden. I think that's symbolic of our identity. We are to guard and protect it and not eat off. I want to be God, in whatever that looks like. Even overeating is like, I'll feel better by what I do. Now, it doesn't mean we don't seek measures of comfort on this planet, but we know when we're going into something else. And I do it all the time. Like, just so you know, like, every day I'm in a redirect, like, just thought of one now as I'm talking here, but we're
on the list.
Yeah, the list gets long, but we're responsible to guard and protect our sovereignty. And it's not wrong. It's not new age. It's not selfish. It's actually our time of uncovering so that he can cover. So our sovereignty is our identity in him that he made. Nobody can tread on it, and we can't tread on anybody else's. And so this is that holy of holies with him. This is a privacy thing. Nobody can get in there, and you can't get into anybody else's. But a lot of like damaging, culty, fringy religions will try to get all in on that. And then the world will try to rob that sacred space by making it common. You see what I mean? So that's kind of where I see like Yom Kippur is like when we get, we're liberated from the burden we're placing on others and confessing it. And he's cleansing us. And then at the same time, it's like what was done to us and how we responded. We bring those cries to him as well, because he knows, right? When we say, I did this and I said this, but she was really hurtful to me. And the Father's like, yeah, I saw that. I know, but still bring that fake girl and lay her down. She's nothing to you and me,
Mm-hmm. Mary Catherine asked a question here. Let me get that for you real quick. She wanted to know if you could maybe give an example of how the religious world cuts into that sovereignty. A specific example.
And if you've got 6 hours, no, I'm kidding.
I know, right?
So sometimes you have like a very earning based a system, not just rules that make a community strong and thrive, but these culty forms where people tell you, it's like, it's weird. Like, the Father gave me a word about you and you're doing this wrong and I saw it. And it's like, well, God was gossiping about me and you saw what? And I don't know about it and the Spirit didn't convict me, but you know this. Like, they take this power role to put on you. Now, what that does is it intrudes on your identity because it shames you. So when Adam and Hava are hidden and shamed, they're ashamed. That what that word is, they were confounded. And ultimately the word confounded applies to our identity. I don't know who I am. I didn't know I was the king's kid and he's going to come and save me. I thought I was this bad loser that had to hide from the good guy. We lost our identity. We rejected our humanity. We try, right? So religion, when it's an unhealthy situation, they will know that they're heat-seeking missiles for that proclivity we have. They know we're Eve. They know it. And they are Eve. And they don't mean to, but they think that that's the right power structure. So they're very much seeking a power base on which to base their religion. And if they have dreams, or if they babble, if they can raise from the dead. But what does Yeshua say? You know, you did all those things in my name and I don't even know you. Like, that stuff isn't what I'm about. It says greater things you'll do than him. And people think that means you're going to raise people from the dead. But I think the greater things is the fruits of the Spirit. And
beautiful.
Those are all about who we are as God's kids.
Yeah.
We're loving, we're patient, we're long suffering, we're faithful. Those are the greater things we'll do than get credit because everyone's like, did you see her? She raised that person from the dead. How holy is she? And you're like, yep, that's me. That's a false self. Now that's right, because we're taking on this dog and pony show. So, and that it can tread on people's toes. And not everybody likes that little piece. But when you're in a system and you feel dominated and somebody tells you this is how it goes, and the Father tells me things about you, and the Lord showed me this and you're wrong, and all these things, that's not mentorship. Mentorship is foot washing. It's Mr. Miyagi watching Jacka on years for a long time until he sees his student is safe to have jacket and not be rude to his mom, because that shows he lacks a core value that reflects the Father. So religion can be this, it's like you're a power couple with God. Like, no, that's not what we're striving for. We want to be the happy couple. We want to be the together couple, right? And so, but the idea of a couple doesn't fully encompass it either, because our love for him is to rise to the level of actual worship. So we need to remember that. But if we think we've got this covered, we're certainly not going to worship him in spirit and truth.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. Oh, I love that. Okay.
Does that help?
It does. It does. Catherine said, so if we're all children of God, how do we healthily break that from that peacefully, especially in that religious world? How would we break that? I think that you touched on that. It's by submitting to him, right? It's by actually letting go of that falseness of you and having that true intimacy with him. And then all of a sudden, what they're trying to put on you, all of a sudden it's,
And from a practical standpoint, what does that look like?
Yeah, so, practical, do it.
And I do a lot of work with people that have come out of cults and they are so damaged. And when I say damage, that's no insult. They're wounded and bruised, right? And so what does it look like? So this is, to me, what it looks like. First of all, you find a safe place to be cradled in your pain, not judged because you fell into that, not shamed because you fell into that, but cradled, like a safe person, safe group of ladies, just a place where you can be authentically you and say, hey, listen, we were the worst thing for each other. I let them dominate me and they dominated me. So to extract from that, Now, if you're dealing with toxic people and they don't have awareness that they're in this false place, it's not always the most healthy thing to let your enemy know. When I say enemy, I don't mean it like in a bad way, but
Right.
like you're not going to be like, if some people lack awareness, you're just not going, they're not going to change. If they don't see that they're dominating you, I don't have a lot of hope they're going to change tomorrow. So it's not like you're going to be like, hey, I've kind of had this revelation that I feel like I have not guarded and protected my sovereignty, and I've allowed you to tread on it. Now you've got a comfy chair there. It's a lazy boy, and you're sitting back with chips, and I have allowed you to live there. And it's really messing me up, and I'm feeling really resentful. So they're not going to be like, I totally, yes. Now, I'm not saying that can't happen. How great if it did, where they'd say, hey, yeah, let's do it. Let's do a U-turn and let's not do that anymore. You would leave that group. Now you want to leave with a blessing. A lot of people think that's a big thing. You can't always leave with a blessing, because sometimes they won't bless you to leave. They don't want you to leave. You're one of the props that keep this machine going. And sometimes it will be kind of an ugly breakup. Unfortunately, it feels like a divorce. And then when you feel like it feels like a divorce, you were married to that. So it's kind of like a clue. Oh, wow. This really was in all the nooks and crannies, and it got the tentacles. And so it's not that these people mean this most of the time. You tend to have very charismatic groups that get very lost in emotion, and it's just like that runaway train, and it can go there. And so yeah, what is it? So it just might look like removing yourself and saying, I have, no ill will toward anyone, but this isn't a setting that I feel like is transformative for me in a way I need to. And then you go to your safe group that cradles you with all your boo-boos, right? Because the Father uses us as vessels of comfort for each other. He says, encourage each other with those words. People have a role. So they'll just say, okay, I know that was hurtful, and I know you had a long history with this person, and they did a lot of good things, and you might have fed orphans together, and it wasn't all bad, but it was getting to that point where you didn't feel like change could happen. You were lost and buried in it. We're here for you. And if that person still calls you and they're mad at you and they're gossiping about you to other people, which is kind of how that falls out, I help people through that a lot. And then they're like, they're in pain. They don't like it. They panic. Their heart starts. They're like, oh my gosh. Well, you know what? That was a big part of your life, and you're going to feel lost. You're going to miss certain things, and it's going to be okay. So you've got to get your cradlers, you got to go to the people that are going to call you out in all the right non-shaming ways, and at the same time, hold you fast when you're falling off those props. And you're doing it on purpose. You're like, hey, all the props are falling down. Kind of in our world right now, it's like that. Does that help?
Definitely. I think so. I do. I think so. That was very good. I like what you said. Extract from toxicity. It's really good. Yeah, because that's, boy. And we see a lot of that today. I like what you were saying also about how the world, it feels right now in this moments that we're living in. It feels like all of the things that have held us up and kept us comfortable, the things that we've depended on for a long time, are all being pulled out from underneath us. And so there's that fear that's going on in a lot of people right now. Robin, you want to address that a little bit? Just the fear of it all, and like how are this is Yom Kippur. This is when we're coming to him and asking him to cancel. He's actually saying to us, I'm here to cancel your debts. Bring them to me. It's not like we're trying to, it's not like, I really like how you did that, but it's not like we're trying to somehow redeem ourselves in all of this.
Right.
We're really bringing everything to him. And when you're in Israel, I know, Robin, that you've been many times. And for those of you that haven't been, one of the really cool things is when you go to Israel is when you pay something, it's stamped shalom. And what that means is that it's paid for in full. Did you guys get that? It's stamped shalom because it's paid for in full. Yeah. Because it is complete. It's done.
Yeah.
Boom, shalom. People forget that that's what shalom means. It's complete.
Yes.
Everything is put back. It's whole. It's not fractured any longer. It's complete. There's no debt owed anymore. It's complete.
Yeah.
How beautiful is that? And that is the time that we're in. We're going to be,
Yeah.
we're moving into that tomorrow.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm really glad you brought that up. I think that's actually part of the Yom Kippur message, is that stamp of that receipt. I think that's really a nice one. Yeah, because it's like you're released from this debt, and release means you're not handcuffed to slavery anymore.
Yes.
You don't have to go wash dishes. You get to go home with your friends. You're released. And so the idea of like the false self, we're slaves to that. Now in the world today, and I had a rough day. I'm not going to lie. Like today was one of those days. I got a lot of bad news with a lot of sick, different people, which is like, what, that's really painful. And it makes us feel very shaky, and it does. I mean, it really can. Different people respond to stress differently, but we do feel the groanings of the earth. We hear it, and some people are more in tune than others to the melancholy threads of the wailing of this world, and other people can't quite do that because that's not their role. They're to help people through that. Everybody has a different role. We can't judge how people are reacting. Some people aren't as worried. Some people are more worried. It doesn't mean they're sinning. It means that they are to be in touch with this under peace. I'm one of those people, right? So I'm going to be more in touch. So I'm also going to pay more of an emotional price sometimes and be like, oh. So the idea of like if we feel shifting sand, and you feel like, so when the Father says fear not, a lot of people think if you're afraid you're sinning. So I don't believe that. I believe he's a parent saying, listen, don't be afraid, I've got this. Why would he tell you that? Because he knows you're going to be afraid, because it's scary. Right. It's a scary thing. It's a scary world. It's a scary, slavery. Egypt was scary. They were terrified to stay. They were terrified to leave. They'd gotten comfortable in their 3 squares. I mean, that was, but no freedom. So when we are going to Yom Kippur, we're saying, I'm relying less even on my character than I am on yours, God. Like, I really can't do this thing. I don't have the character. I don't, but you do. And so what I'll do is I just want to hand it all over to you. And there's going to be a piece there we're going to unbury this year. We don't know what it will be, but we're going to see it. It's going to be beautiful because you made me, Father. So it's like a cycle every year. More and more of these false parts of the slavery part of the world, like we're enslaved to the meal until it's shalom, you're released, you're complete. We're not complete yet. And and the Father knows that. And every year we need to start over. And then he gives us this massive preparation with Elul, right? So it's like, how you pray, you can pray that like, Father, I just pray that I want to pray, 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 that I will forgive that person. And you're like, Father, that's where I want to start. And then he's like, okay. And then you get to where you just want to pray that you want to pray, that you want to pray. And you're like, woohoo, progress. Okay. Now I want to pray that I want to pray. You know what I mean? And so that's truth, right? Think of Jacob. He wrestles with God, and then he never walks the same again. He's limping because it was a rough thing. But he walked differently. You knew who he was by his limp, and his name was changed, and he prevailed with God. So we're going to do this Yom Kippur wrestling match with paint on, up, whatever. We're going to go through this. And that's not bad, right? And so the Bible, there's a carnagey aspect to the Bible that is really unfortunate, but it is the way the world is. And the Father gets that, right? So carnage is part of this process. And so there's going to be some things are going to have to be destroyed, and you're going to hear rocks crumbling and fires starting as all this stuff's got to be burned. And so it's just the way it is. If you have an up, you have a down. And the Father, free will is there. So it's a messy thing, 10 pegs in the head. There's a lot of stuff in the Bible that we read, and it's like, that's a bedtime story. Wow.
That's a real bummer. To peg to the temple. Yeah, that's a real bummer.
And why do I love that story so much?
I know, right? Why are we so drawn to that story? For a lot of reasons.
Homeschoolers are like, I don't want my children to have anything to do with blood and murder. And I'm like, well, then don't
Mhm.
read the Bible.
Yeah. Sorry, what are you gonna read? Because it is messy,
I stay
but
away
it's
from
real.
yeah.
It's real. And this is the thing for me. I used to have a really hard time. Like I couldn't even read scriptures that were like really harsh. I couldn't because I thought, well, that's just not God's character. That's just not God. Oh my goodness. He is the great judge. He is the only one that can judge. He's the only one that truly can judge. And so as these things are falling apart in the world, we have to understand that he sees things beyond what we see.
Yeah.
And we all know, if we could just step back a little bit, we all know that in some of the hardest things that we have ever experienced in our lives, the most beautiful, fruitful things have come from that. And we all know that. If we can just stop and take a look back, the hardest things, there's been tremendous victories and beauty in the midst of all of it. And we have to allow that to happen on a bigger scale for those that are even farther away from his holiness, farther away from being able to meet him or get to him, because we pray for those that are far away to come back. We pray for the exiles to come back, don't we? And then things happen, and then we're like rebuking those things. Wait a minute. We have to trust that God really does get it, and that he will go to any lengths. His love is unstoppable, and he will go to any lengths to bring back his beloved so that his bride is whole and complete and ready at that time. And it's not going to always look the way that we anticipate. So yes, when things start looking really hard, it's very easy for us to say, oh, well, that's a bad thing. Don't judge. Just say, Father, whatever you're doing in this space of that you've given me, I'm going to put my feet on your word, and I'm going to trust you in this. And that's what I can do. And all of those other things, I'm going to leave it to you because you're the judge and I'm not. We're not equipped, are we, to judge that, to judge those things. We're really not equipped.
We can talk about right and wrong, but not good and evil, because we don't know man's motives. And when we're reading, like you're saying, when you're reading the Bible, and it's like, sometimes we're reading something and it's just so upsetting, so scary. This is just a controversial statement I'll make here. My personal, Robin's opinion, this is just my opinion. I liken this because I look through an attachment lens that we're kids and we don't understand everything grown-ups say. And so when we're the tent peg in the head, that's how that guy was healed. That was better for him.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Another day. And so it's kind of like that Mother's Day example I use sometimes. It's like, I think of this time when it was Mother's Day, and I brought my mom up pancakes and breakfast in bed, and I was 7, and she was like, and ate them. Well, when she came downstairs, it was no longer Mother's Day for her, because this kitchen, like, I don't think there was eggs on the ceiling fan. I was 7, but did she say it? But now, if I had heard her say, now, what was her heart? Her heart was like, look how hard she worked to make those for me. Like, she loves me, right? But if I had eavesdropped, so this is my controversial sentence. When we read something that we don't really understand, I kind of feel like we're eavesdropping. We're not there yet for that line in the Bible. We will be, but we're not there today because it terrifies us. And whenever we're terrified of our parent in the wrong way, rather than I'll be in trouble if I take the car out drunk, that we should be afraid, because he's not right. He doesn't want us to die. Right. But the idea of, like, when I read something, if we're turning the page of the Bible in terror rather than in conviction, that's different. If we're afraid the father's bad, right? Like Jonah was like, didn't want to go to Nineveh because it's like, well, I think he was like, but why would you forgive those people? They've done horrible things. Does that mean you're not good? And he was so upset. But the father, I think, we're eavesdropping on stuff we're not ready to know yet. And maybe next year we'll read that and read it differently and say, oh, okay, remember that tent peg story that totally gave me nightmares for a year? You know what? That was that guy's healing. Because yes, Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Healing isn't always they get up and took their kettle of fish and bamboo mat and took off.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes
No.
it's like they did die,
Yes.
or they were crippled or whatever, and they're
Yeah.
healing,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
yeah, so it's a strong message there. Not everybody will agree with that. They'll think
Mhm.
all the Bible is for them all the time, but I think they're here and there. I'm going to read something. It's going to strike something in me that isn't going to build me up because of me. Something in
Right. That's
it,
good.
and I need to let that false thing go, but maybe I haven't yet. So don't read the Bible through the lens of the false girl. Okay, so I'm not reading that line yet. I'll go to the Psalms and be comforted for a minute because that's really one where my so then you know what I mean? And then you read it next week and you're like, okay. You know why? Because maybe there was a message of trust that you heard in between. It's like, okay, Father, whatever it is, you're good. And whatever conviction I have, it's because you're good. It's not because I'm horrible, but I did a horrible thing. So my identity isn't challenged because if the creator made you, you're good. But if you do a bad thing, that's where we run to the Father, wailing with our debts, all crowding in a big basket we can barely lift, and we might have to take several trips. And we run to him with these debts.
Mhm. That's so good. I love that, Robin. You're amazing. I love how you are able to put this into terms that we can really understand. And we have about 10 minutes, but do you have anything else that you wanted to share?
Well, does anyone have any questions or comments or talk about the false self? I mean, sometimes people think that's just some hooey-fooey like psychological babble. But it's not. I think it's really a part of our process as we walk through this earth is being Eve, because I think that's the reason we had that story. The very
Mhm.
first story of human beings shows that the first thing we're going to do is try to be like God and then hide from him when he comes to correct to cover us. Now he does ultimately cover her with these
Mhm.
animal skins, which is I think the picture of Yom Kippur. He says, but here's the thing. Being in this garden that you didn't guard and protect and your identity was compromised, whether you use the fig leaf to replace me, this exceeds your abilities. So I'm going to tell you, you got to go toil in the soil elsewhere. And so for your own good, so you'll know who I really am. And that means you need to know who you are to really know who I am. If you know you're the king's kids, then you know how good I am. You know I'm a king. And it's really important. These are married concepts. So we're to love God with everything we are and love our neighbor as ourselves and love ourselves as our neighbor. So but it doesn't rise to the level of worship like God, right?
Right.
But don't be someone's God. You can't be. Don't be your own God. You can't be. Don't compete. Don't go in there. You don't understand these things. So we weren't ejected in judgment in a bad way. This was so we could be restored. So in the Bible, it's like, the Father even says, you want to get to know me, look at ants. They'll help you understand me. Like you want to understand, you know what I mean? Like there's so many ways in this world in using the physical world, the Father teaches us about him. And Yeshua is all about the parables, and giving us this understanding because he will tell us in the way we can hear it. And it isn't to terrorize us. And I
No.
think there's religions that they really make this a focus. If you hate yourself enough, God knows you know what sin is. But
Mhm.
he specifically says to love your neighbor as yourself and to love yourself as your neighbor. The idea isn't to hate yourself. The thing is to know yourself as he made you. That's the good part. The false self that you do, the controller, the angry one, the addict, the overeater, I mean, the withdrawer, the angry one, whatever it is, right? I mean, like I said, I have enough false selves to do a chorus line. I mean, just putting that right out there. And I'm always working with, oh my goodness, the performer, she needs to go. Like, you know, it's so hard. It's so hard. Sometimes our giftings take us, hog tie us and run away with us, and
Oh, yes.
but that idea is that to know to know me, you have to know who you are at the same time, and you wouldn't have to know you're my kid. You're valuable. You can't get your hands on that value to either diminish it or expand it. It's done because of who I am. If I'm the creator and I created you, you're my creation, you are good. And just because you happen to come off good doesn't mean that, right? So all the ways that we cover up that good us, That's all the stuff he's going to cover. That's our shame. That's our confoundedness. That's a part of us that doesn't know who we are. It doesn't know we're safe. And so he's like, so wax on and wax off. And at the right moment, at the right time, when something's heading your way that you don't want, it's not going to lay a glove on you. And so that's really about our protection. And there's a process to get there. And it's okay if there's a process and you're not there that day. But we just do it year from year. We do Yom Kippur. We don't understand it all.
Right.
We understand some of it now.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we keep studying. But I like that picture of just like running, wailing, and all the debts are falling out. We're like, hold on, I just got one more. And there's, we're desperate, stumbling all over ourselves to get the opportunity to be covered. We don't have the punishment of fasting.
Right. Right. I love that because when if you went to court, your attorney would say, oh, did you think about, wait, before we get there, did you think about this? What about, hold on now, did you think about, what about this? What about this debt? What about this? And that's what a good attorney does. That's what Yeshua does for us. And that's why he's wooing us, why we need to be tenderhearted before him right now, so that we can hear his voice and we can say, you're right. I hadn't thought about that for a long time. That debt, yeah, I don't want to carry that into next year. And we get to bring it so he can stamp shalom on it.
Man, yeah.
Wholeness, wellness, completeness. And a lot of people tend to look at Yom Kippur as this very harsh, and I think that you touched on this in the beginning, very harsh and sad, and a day when it's just, but in reality, this is the preparation. This is what we get to do. This is what we get to do. Yeah. We've been honored to be able to do this. How much does he love us that he's drawing us into this place of intimacy where he's saying, give it all to me, give it all to me, give it all to me. You can't overwhelm me.
Right.
You think that everything that you're bringing is overwhelming me. It's not even touching the first layer of my piggy bank. Yeah. That's what he's saying. He's like, oh no, that's not, no, I got that covered. That's not even hard.
Exactly. And
we think it's the end of the world. We think it's so, we can't even, yeah.
We think we're being shut out because we're bad, when he's saying, come in, and there's going to be one thread of you that's going to feel my tears, feel my weeping when you ran off and hid. Because I'm going to let you feel that so we can be close. And so you will realize how much I love you, and that hiding is not your role. Running to me is your role. And you're safe when you run to me. And when you hide from me, you're confounded about who you are. I'm daddy. And daddy has some lessons for you. And they don't feel good all the time. And sometimes you're grounded and you're whatever you are. But when we remember that parental role. And so I think Yom Kippur, heaven and earth meet just that little bit. We were melancholy. We're in that place. We're sad and repenting for every drop of blood that's hit the earth, because we know how much he loves all people. And so he privileges us with like getting into that place with him. We get into that dirt, we get our hands dirty with him, because that's what he did. He's in there with us. And he covers that on. And so it's a beautiful picture of the privilege he gives us of like, I take care of you, and it will not be comfortable, but you will be comforted. And he, in his own way, I think, is comforted, because our devotion is the gift he can't take, or it's not a gift. Right. He doesn't like put a gun to us, marry me or be in hell forever. There's no free will there. It's like, every woman, yes, I'll marry you. That feels
that's a shotgun wedding, right?
Yeah. But that's really kind of like if you read the Bible from a cursory and just survey it as a person who's skeptical of it, yeah, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. You're going to see angles of buildings. You're not going to know it's where all the babies are waiting to be adopted. You know what I mean? You're not going to just have an angled building. But with the Father, he just gives us that privilege to pluck a couple of those grief threads he has. That's intimacy. That's why it's in that whole, I think, in that Holy of Holies, because that's where that little tiny one person with, and then that release, that shalom is stamped on. And then afterwards, it's like, we break our fast and we eat and we take a breath and we take a shower, and we are just like, how you cry in the shower, because sometimes, like, I feel like the Father just cries for you, and when you're going through a grieving thing, and a lot of times people will like say, I cried in the shower, like this, it's like a release, because the Father will always be there to aid you and equip you one way or another, in whatever way he's picking. And Yom Kippur is his way now, which will start tomorrow at sunset for people on the Hillel calendar, and then we'll all be in solidarity with the threads of melancholy and the joy of release and the end of slavery and the recognition of slavery, and all of
Right.
those pieces.
Right. Right. Yeah. We'll be experiencing all of that. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Robin, for helping us to come to a place of a little bit better understanding of the heart of God for his people, for his bride, and that he does want to comfort us. Yes, we'll be uncomfortable, but he wants to comfort us. And I hope that that is a message that all of you are able to take away from this little talk. And thank you so much, Dr. Robin, for just being you and just sharing your heart with us in such a wonderful way. It is time for us to be going. Is anyone have any questions that you want to raise up real quick? And then we will have a few minute after party, just for a few minutes. If Dr. Robin, can you stay with us for a few minutes? Okay, great. Okay, I think that's it. And we'll just go ahead and go into our after party. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to stop the recording now. Be blessed. We will see you next Tuesday, actually, the 21st. We will be having another Tuesday talk, and I'll be coming to you live from my sukkah. So we will be enjoying. I want you to all be in your sukkahs if you can be in your sukkah, and we'll have our Tuesday talk from there. It'll be great. Blessings to you all.
Thank you.
And we will see you soon.